Hello everyone, Richard here again. Today I'm excited to bring you my latest Raspberry Pi 3 Model B Plus project. Today I'm going to show you how to create a dedicated Wi-Fi access point using this little device. I'm really impressed on how it works, and I'm sure you will be too. But in this video I'm going to show you how to take it from nothing to a dedicated Wi-Fi access point that you can use anywhere. I want to point out that if you have a comment, a suggestion, or a question, put it in the comment section below. I read them all the time. A lot of my videos are generated from your questions as well, so I appreciate them greatly. Also, in the video description below, I'll put all the links to all the hardware that I used in this video so you can get it from the same people I got it from. Also, as a bonus, I'm going to show you my mini mouse keyboard that's backlit combination that I use with my Raspberry Pi as well. This thing's been really handy, and now I just can't do without it. So I'm going to show you that as well. Here's all the hardware I'm going to be using in this video. Of course, the Raspberry Pi 3 Model B Plus. Love this thing, works great. Very happy with this purchase. So again, and I'll put links for all this stuff in the video description for everybody. But yeah, the Raspberry Pi 3, this power supply from North Pata, the 3 amp power supply. I can't stress enough to buy something like this, especially I would say this one, because it's worked great with the Raspberry Pi. I don't get the lightning bolt in the top corner that tells you that you have a power problem anymore. I did when I was beginning. I thought I could just power it off anything, and yeah, it needs the Raspberry Pi needs a lot of power, or it needs an adequate power supply, and this North Pata works great. I got a video on that, so I'll put a card up for that, and also I'll put it in the video description for a link where you can buy it. But again, can't recommend it enough. It works great. I actually used it, and it not only powered the actual Raspberry Pi, it powered my external hard drive at the same time. And I have a video on how to boot this thing using a 320 gig hard drive. You know, again, I'll put a card up for that as well. USB hard drive, external, work great. Gear that you need. I'm going to be using a USB PNY thumb drive. This is a USB 2 thumb drive. All the USB ports on the Raspberry Pi are USB 2 anyway, so USB 2 is just fine. And I'm going to put an edit here for the hardware. I had the PNY green USB 2 thumb drive, and it was torturously slow. Then I tested all my USB 2 thumb drives, and they were all torturously slow and just not usable for me on the Raspberry Pi. I don't suggest using USB 2 thumb drives, as the memory speed on them, it's just way too slow. Like I had a read speed of 2.385 as the megabytes per second as the slowest one, and the fastest one I had was 8.9 megabytes. This one here gives me over 19 to 20 on the write speed, and over 30 on the read speed. So you know, you can use Crystal Disk Mark like I use to test out the thumb drives, but and again, those speeds were on USB 2. So the memory speed on a USB 3 thumb drive is considerably faster than the memory speed on a USB 2 thumb drive, and that makes sense because it's got to keep up with USB 3 speed. So I'm going to be using this 32 gig USB 3 thumb drive, and I got this for under $8 as well. So I'll put links for this stuff in the video description below, and I cannot any longer suggest using USB 2 thumb drives with the Raspberry Pi. They're just torturously slow. So you can use this. You can use a micro SD card, and again, I will put a card up here where I show you how to set up your Raspberry Pi to boot from a USB device. And once you've done that, you don't need to do it again. Once you set it, it's set forever. So it will always go looking for a USB thumb drive or device to boot from if the SD card, micro SD card, is not in it. You're gonna need a patch cable to go from the Ethernet port to your router. And that's going to go into your LAN ports. I'll show you how to connect all this in a minute. This is my external keyboard mouse combination. I love this thing. Primary reason is it's very handy. It's very small. It works great with the Raspberry Pi. And I have the mouse and the keyboard all in one place. Plus, there's another plus to it. It actually only uses one USB dongle or radio receiver. So then I've got a keyboard and mouse using only one USB port, which leaves me with 3 others to do whatever I wish with. Of course, one of them in this case is going to be the PNY 16 gig thumb drive, but that still leaves me with 2 extra USB ports to use for whatever I wish after that. So yeah, that's a big plus there, and I'll show you this a little bit more here in a minute. Other than that, I think that's basically covering everything as far as hardware goes. Let's take a look at this keyboard because it's great. You can get this keyboard. I got it for under 12 bucks, I believe, on eBay and Amazon as well. Again, links in the video description below. Show you what it is involved with it. Yeah, there's what you get. It's full keyboard. It's got all the functions. I like that it's got a mouse keys on the left here that you can use with your thumb. Also has mouse keys here as well, which is handy. So either way, it's good. It's got functions for the mouse, which I like, which is a single tap, the double fingers for scrolling, and triple fingers for the right tap. I don't use that much because, you know, got the keys right there. Media keys, awesome. And navigation keys with the OK button in the center, which acts as enter. The quick keys as well. You can also use this as a controller inside RetroPie. So if you want to use it as a controller in RetroPie, you can. And I have. Okay, so it does work. Now, the other thing about it is not USB. It is RF. It's the RF version. There is a, sorry, it's not Bluetooth. This is the RF version. There is a Bluetooth version of it. This is what we're dealing with here. Has a nice big battery in it. It's rechargeable. It is a BL-5C 1020 milliamp hour cell. This is a Nokia cell phone battery, so it's easily replaceable. You can buy it on eBay all day long or Amazon, no problem at all. And it is lithium ion, so it's rechargeable. The keyboard comes with a charging cable and, of course, the radio USB dongle right there. So yeah, this battery lasts forever, by the way. So again, I didn't feel like making an entire video on the keyboard, but I did want to show it to you and explain to you how nice it is for this purpose. So one more thing too, charges using a USB micro USB cable. So that comes with it as well, on and off. So let's just show you this too, because this is neat. It is backlit. So if you want to use it in the dark for, say, Kodi or a media player of some kind, and by the way, this doesn't work. This works on, and it works on my laptop and my computer as well. So if you got a USB port on it, whatever device you want to plug it into may work on it. I can't guarantee you 100% compatibility, but it works on my laptop and on my computer. So that's another bonus. And it is, like I said, it's backlit. You can see that the keys are backlit here. You can go through the functions. There's different sets of backlit functions there, as you can see. And that's neat. And you go, oh, well, that's kind of a toy thing. No, when it's dark, these lights definitely allow you to see the keys, and you can actually use this in total darkness with the backlight on. So that's, if you're using it for a media controller, yeah, that's a plus. So let me just function out of that. And then there's just off all the lights, which I like most of the time. But again, showing you this because it's a great little device for your Raspberry Pi. And look at the size of it. I mean, it's really small, really tiny. The range also is amazing. There's nowhere in my apartment where I can't use this keyboard and have it connect. I tested it as far in every corner, in the closets, everywhere, and it still worked everywhere I went to. So the range is amazing on this keyboard. All right, so that's it for the keyboard. Next, I'm going to show you how to connect the Raspberry to your router quickly here. The way this app is going to work, or access point is going to work, is that you're going to connect to your network using Ethernet, and then everything else will connect to it using Wi-Fi. Then it will connect everything in the Wi-Fi spectrum to the internet and to your network. Plug the Ethernet cable into the Raspberry Pi, and on your router, you've got a WAN port or internet port. That, of course, is going to go to your modem or whatever way you get into the internet. And the other end of the Raspberry Pi patch cable will go into one of the 4 LAN ports in my case, whatever you have. It's going to go into one of those ports. It's the Ethernet ports or LAN ports on your router. After that, the Raspberry will get its own IP address from your router, and then you're good to go. Okay, so that's it for the physical portion of this. Next, we're going to go get the software and configure the Raspberry Pi to become an access point. I wanted to quickly explain what is going to happen here with this Raspberry once we get this all done. What we're going to do is turn it into a wireless access point. So clients will be able to connect to it, no problem. All Wi-Fi clients will be able to connect to it if they have the SSID and the the password to get on, just like a normal Wi-Fi hotspot. And then from there, the Raspberry is going to route them through your router and into the internet. That's what it's going to do. Now, you could cut this line and not have it connected to a router at all. And the Raspberry would then be a freestanding access point, which would mean that clients could connect to it. They could talk to each other, no problem. They would never be able to connect to the internet because it's not connected to the internet, but they could talk to each other. So you could create a mini Wi-Fi network where, you know, wireless clients could actually connect to each other, like say out in your car or something, where one Wi-Fi device could talk to another Wi-Fi device using this thing as well. So it can work standalone, but its real best function is to go through your router and into the internet, and then allow people to go into the Wi-Fi access point. Why would you want to do this? Well, you could run a long Ethernet cable to this thing to the other side of your house and have people connect to Wi-Fi on the other side of your house and go through your router and into the internet on the other side of your house. So that's another reason why it'd be a cool thing to have. Now, it is on its own network, but it will still be able to see stuff on your network. So it's not going to isolate clients from your network. Okay, they'll still be able to see stuff on your network. It won't be really easy for them to do that, but if they're smart enough, they can do it. So I'm not promising you that, but I'm promising you an access point that works connected to your router. I'm going to assume here that you're going from scratch like I am. In other words, there's nothing on your drive, and you need to get the operating system up and running. And then we're going to configure or download and configure the RasAp access point software. So let's go get the Raspbian software. So we go here to download, just do a Raspbian download Google search, click on the first thing that comes up, and you've got three options. You've got the stretch with the desktop and recommended software. You've got the Raspbian stretch with the desktop, and you've got Raspbian stretch Lite. Differences in these three packages are primarily size and what comes with them, except for this last one. This last one is only what they call CLI or command line only. It doesn't have a desktop. So we're not going to do that, because though I can do this with just CLI or command line, it's just too much work, and there's really no point. Yes, this is a smaller, miniature-based Raspbian. It'll fit on a much smaller drive, but I mean, a 16 gig drive is right here is $5, and it's probably going to have 8 or more gigs left over after we're done doing this. So there's really no point to go command line. It makes the video and this whole process a little more complicated than it needs to for little value. So let's go download the zip file for the stretch with desktop. You can do the other one if you wish as well. And I will show you how to take the whole operating system down to command line, after we get it all working, so that it can be running in the least amount of memory possible, as opposed to just running with the desktop running, okay? But right now, download I'm going to do the Raspbian stretch. You can go for the full Jones over here if you wish, but I'm just going to go here with the download zip. And it is a zip file, so it doesn't really matter, because we're going to be using another program to extract it that doesn't care about it being a zip file. So here we go. Just hit download, hit OK on the download, save the file somewhere where you're going to remember where it was. And I put all mine in the Raspbian, Raspberry Pi, Raspbian directory here. And as you can see, I have all three already. And the size differences, look at the stretch Lite. It's 359,000 kilobytes. The stretch that I'm downloading right now is 1 gig, and the full Jones or the full package is 1.7. So you choose the one you wish, download it, save it to where you want. I don't need to do this, and for the sake of brevity, don't have to. So here I'm just going to hit cancel, but you do that. Download either the stretch or the stretch with the recommended software. Up to you. So I'm going to close this off. So I'm assuming you've done that. Next thing you're going to need is some sort of imaging software. The most popular, I think, out there for these Raspi and Raspberry Pi images is Etcher. So open up a Google search, type in Etcher, and you'll see Etcher, Balena, and click on that. Or yeah, let's just click on that. Let's go to the official web page. And there it is. And it's saying detecting OS, download for Windows 64. That's what I got. So click on it. Save the file. And I've already got this. So again, I don't know where I put it. I think I put it under downloads. There we go. And if I hit save, it'll say, oh, do you want to, copy over it? No, I don't. So I say no. It's not a very big file, but download it. There it is right there. And once it's downloaded, we're going to install it. Of course, I don't need to, but you do need to. It needs to be installed for it to work. So take it, download it, save it where you wish, and then we're going to open it up. Okay. Cancel here. Down to downloads here. Here we go. And you'll see Etcher in here somewhere. There it is. Balena Etcher setup. So double click that, click on agree, and let's minimize this stuff. And you can see that it's installing here. It's over top of what I already had. It's doing it, but this is the setup. It's pretty straightforward. It just goes. When it's done, we'll use it to extract the image onto our thumb drive. So while that's happening, I'm going to plug the thumb drive in. Here we go. Okay. And I always use my SD card formatter to format anything I put in there. So this is from sdcard.org. Okay, so there's, again, cancel this. So that's why, because Windows sees that drive as an installed image from Raspbian. But regardless, there's Balena. We'll wait on that for a second. You go to sdcard.org here. And these are the people who set the standards for SD cards. So download their SD card formatter. Just go to downloads and you see SD card memory formatter. Go through the process. Choose what you want. In my case, it would be for Windows, SD card formatter. And again, you don't need to use this. You could just use Windows to do it, but this is just so much easier. Click accept on the actual EULA, or the end user licensing agreement, and there it is. Download it, unzip it, run it, and you'll have the SD card formatter on your desktop. I don't need to go through that process as I've already downloaded it. Let's see where I put it here. There it is, SD card formatter. So it comes as a zip. Right click the zip and then choose extract all. And it'll just extract everything onto the same directory you're in. Extract, and it's okay, replace the destination file, fine. There we go. It does what it does, and then it creates an SD card formatter directory, and there's the actual file itself. So double click on that, and it goes and installs. Okay, so yeah, I recommend using it. I think it's great. Works awesome on formatting USB drives and SD cards. I don't need it. It's already installed, so I'm just going to hit cancel. I believe it should still be installed. Yeah, there it is. So you install it, run it. I recommend that you do. It just becomes a lot less of a headache to format these Raspberry Pi images, or drives, or thumb drives. So hit cancel on this. Yeah, you sure? Yeah, finish. So first thing I'm going to do is format that 16 gig USB drive. And it sees it as an SDH, but it's my USB drive. Make sure that you're formatting the right drive. You can check that in your file manager. In my case, it says USB drive E and local drive C. So we want E to be formatted. That's my USB drive, all right? So E, refresh. You can label it if you want. I'm going to call it, let's call it RasAp. Okay, Raspbian app. So format it. It'll do it quickly, right? And after we're done, we're going to burn the image onto it. Okay, so let that finish there. Boom. We're done. Now we have a drive that's E called RasAp. So let's close that off. And here we're going to click select image. And we downloaded all those images into Raspbian. So we want the stretch. I'm not going for the full big huge file. And because this program, this is the nice thing about this program, though you can see that I've extracted the files here, you don't need to use the extracted file. You can use just a regular zip file. Click on that and go from a zip file. So you don't need to extract it and you know, use up space on your hard drive. So hit open. Okay, and it sees your PNY or the PNY USB device. It says you want to use that. It's already check marked. You know, if it isn't, put a check mark on it and hit continue. And then hit flash. And you get this, of course, we want to say yes. So we'll let that go through. When it's done, it's going to verify it. And when it's done verifying, we can eject the drive and, you know, plug it into the Raspberry Pi and boot the Raspberry Pi. So that's where I'm going to go next. Actually, I'll just wait till this is finished, show you the end result. All right, as you can see here, it just finished up validating. It's unmounting the actual image. So we don't need to eject the image. It should automatically be ejected, and meaning that you can just pull the USB thumb drive out of your computer without any issue at all. Let's go verify that. Let's go down here to our file manager, and we don't see it in the drive list, so it's okay to pull it out. So we're going to pull it out, install it into our Raspberry Pi, and boot it up, and I'll show you how to configure it from there on, you know, on the actual desktop itself. So here's how our hardware is going to look. We've got the Raspberry Pi 3 Model B Plus. We've got power going to it, HDMI. I've got a LAN cable going to my router. I've got the keyboard interface in one of the USB ports, as well as the USB 3 thumb drive in one of the USB ports. So we're ready to boot. I'm going to boot this up. I'll show you what happens when we're booting, and because it's an image, it'll go straight into the actual desktop by the time it's done, and then I'll carry it on from there. So we're going through the normal boot process, as you saw there, the 4 Raspberries, and we're going to end up at the desktop. So I'm just going to let this boot, and then I'll edit into the desktop at that point, and we'll carry on in configuring this Raspberry as a Raspberry Pi access point. So here we are at the desktop. I've got my little keyboard mouse combination here for this nice unit, and it's working beautifully. First thing we're going to do when you get to the desktop, of course, you're going to get this Raspberry configuration. So we're going to go through that. Let's go next on this button. And whatever country you're in, I'm in the United States, so I'm going to choose United States, but you choose the country you're in, that's fine. And your time zone, with me, I'm going to choose Chicago because Chicago's on Central, just like Texas is. So here, and I'm using a US keyboard, so I'm just going to choose to use the US keyboard. And click Next, and you can see basically how nice this keyboard's working here. It's super. I really do like it. I think it was a great buy. And if you got a Raspberry Pi, do yourself a favor, get yourself one too. And again, everything in the video description below. All right, so I'll wait for this to go. Okay, so now enter a new password. Always change your password. Never use the default one. The default password on the Raspberry Pi when you first install it for the Pi user is Raspberry, and it's anybody can Google that, right? So make sure you change it. So I'm going to do that here, and of course you got to enter it twice, and I'll keep it hidden, of course. There we go, and just click Next. Part of the process for this configuration will be updating the OS. I'm going to skip that because I've already done it, and here it's also trying to connect to the Wi-Fi, and we're not going to do that. That's not necessary here. So I'm just going to say skip on connecting to the Wi-Fi here, and then update software. I'm going to skip on that too, and I'll show you the command line commands to do that if you don't know how to do that in the command line. But again, you can do it elsewhere. So here I'm going to hit skip because otherwise I'd be here for 20 minutes. So skip that. and now the Raspberry Pi is set and ready to go, so it says. So we're gonna do that, hit the restart, and then we're gonna come back after it restarts. So here we are back on the desktop, and I'm gonna show you how to configure the rest of this. Let me open up a little text file I made with all this information. I was going to show you how to do the command line upgrade as well, and I'll show you that in a second. And open up the command line interface by opening up a terminal window. So there we go. So you know that where this project is actually saved at is the web page for it is here, raspap.com. So you can copy that. I'm going to put it into, I'll show it to you on the web page as well. And you know, the Raspberry is working pretty good here. Now, if you want to see the update commands, here's a list of them. First, you start with the update, sudo apt-get update. Then you go to the next one by one. You hit enter after each one, right? And when you're down to the last one, which is dist-upgrade, and it's done its business, then run sudo autoremove. That gets rid of any packages that the computer is no longer using. It's really useful. And then at that point, definitely reboot and start again. Basically, that's how you update it manually. Now, you could have done that probably with just hitting the button on the configure screen to do the update. So again, I like seeing what's going on, and that will show you everything that's going on. I've already run all these commands, so for the sake of brevity, I'm just showing you how to do that. Now, the other thing that you may want to know how to do, and try not to cover it up here, is this command, raspi-config or -config. This is the command line configuration utility for the Raspberry Pi. All right. So if you go with sudo, I put that in there. I didn't put it in. I'll put it in here for everybody. And I'll put all these commands in the video description below, as well as all the hardware links as well. So just let me put that in there. There we go. And that's, at this point, I'm just going to copy and paste it. Here, Control C. And over here to our command line, just to show you this. These are things that are good to know, right? There we go. And then just hit enter on this. And this is the text version of the configuration file. So you can do this from what they call SSH, which is command line. But just showing you a few basic things that are, might help you with this RasAp as well. Though it will all be web-based and it will all be GUI-based. So this is just a nice to know. So I'm going to hit finish here, and we're back. So what we need to do is use this command right here. And let me go back to what I was going to show you before I got totally ADD'd out of it. This is where the project is. So I'm going to Control V here. It's just so you can see where I'm getting all this information from. You can go get it from here as well. I will put a link to all the commands I use to do this in the video description again, so it's easier. And if you look through this, I'll use my scroll here, and okay, there we go. You can see what it's going to look like when it's done here. But what we need to do is everything it tells us to do right here. So all these commands are available here. My update is different than what they show. I show a bit more than they do. They're basic. They're going for the most basic way you can do it. And the actual command to go get the software and install it in the Raspbian is right here. In the Raspberry is right here. So you can copy it from my video description below, or you can get it from this web page. It's up to you. And so let's just put that in here. I'm going to copy it from here for now. So highlight it all, copy it I'm just going to use Control C. You could right click it and choose copy as well, like this, right? And go back to your command line, and that's how you install the software. It's command line based. So right click it here, hit paste, and I must have missed something. Yeah, I did. Yeah. The $ is not part of the equation. Let me get that out of there. So just there, delete the $. So everything after the $. So my mistake there. I don't know why they included that there, but yeah, that'll mess people up, won't it? So again, here, when you take it from here, don't include the $. And you know, in my configuration, if you look at it, I'll take it out as well, and that way we don't have the same problem. And I'm sure a lot of people have that problem, and they're going, "Oh, it's not working for me." Well, just a simple $sign. They assume that you know what that you know a lot about Linux. Okay, so here we're going to say it's saying, okay, let's see if I can make this bigger. Okay, so again, go with all the defaults. The defaults here, just hit yes and hit enter. There we go. And again, I'm assuming you've got your Ethernet cable connected to your router, right? And we're booted up that way, all right? Here it's saying I need to download some more packages. So say yes and enter. And like I said, I'm assuming you've plugged this into your router, as I showed at the very beginning of the hardware setup. And you know, just in case that you think that this is all going to be command line, it doesn't have to be. Only part of this that really needs to be command line is the actual installation of the program. I will show you how to configure the Raspberry to not boot to the desktop, which will use less resources and make it boot quicker. So, you know, you may want to do that after we've got it all configured. But let's go and get this working. Let this unpack. And the beautiful thing about this is that when this is done, like when this all scrolls through, at the bottom of it, when it's done, we'll already have it running. So I'll show you that as well. So we're being asked here a question about HTTP only for session cookies, and the default answer is yes. So click on yes here, and then, well, actually just type in the letter Y, hit enter. And then again, do it again. It's asking a second question on PHP OP cache. So let's just say yes. Again, always go with the default yes. And this takes a few minutes, you know, that's normal. Let it go through. Again, I'll show you how to configure all this after it's done doing this, and I'll pick it up at the end if there's no more questions on the actual download and install process. And one last question in the configuration, it's asking if you want to reboot as a final step, and the answer of course is yes. So here we just put a Y and hit enter, and the system proceeds to reboot. So I'll pick it up after that comes back, and then we'll configure the software, or the app as it's called, the access point, after it's installed, which is right now. So here we are back at the desktop after installing the RasAp software, and I'm just going to open up the browser here, and you can see there I had it on my text document, all the information you need to log in into your RasAp. You know, basically you got to go to the 10.3.141.1 IP address in your browser. That's the default IP address. Now, understand that I'm doing this inside the Raspberry Pi that's running the software, so it's local. I don't recommend configuring it this way. I don't recommend running desktop software on a server that doesn't need it running. So I'll show you how to switch the desktop off and go back to the command line only boot. That'll be easy, but I just wanted to show you the actual application running itself. So here we're going to go to 10.3.141.1. So put that IP address into your address bar in your Raspberry Pi after installing the software. Just hit enter, and you get a administration login. So here, the default password and username, the username is admin, all lowercase, and the password is secret, all lowercase as well. Again, I'll put all that stuff into the video description underneath the video, so you can get it easily. Secret, I think I have it there. There we go. And here you are. Here's the default login web page for RasAp, or the access point we just created using the Raspberry Pi. Now, I'm not going to go through the configuration here on the actual Raspberry Pi. You could configure it here if you wish to, but I'm going to show you how to do that remotely from a Windows client that's connected to this access point, because that's the way it should be done. Here I just wanted to show you that it was working, and here it's up. And you can see that I have somebody connected to it right now, which is my laptop right there. Okay, so I'm going to go back and just close this off, and here's all the information you need to log into it. But again, I'm going to show you that on a Windows client in a minute. What I wanted to do right now is show you how to configure this so that now the next time it boots to the command line. So we're going to open up a terminal window here. The basic command is going to be sudo, so sudo, raspi-config or -config, and that is the configuration program for the command line. And actually I find it more reliable than the configuration program that they use inside the GUI or the the desktop software. So do it this way, it works every time. So here we're going to hit enter on this, and you see all the parameters that you have for changing the configuration. Number one thing we want to do, if you haven't done it yet, is change the user password from Raspberry to something else. Definitely do that. I've done that. I did that as part of the initial configuration. Network options, we don't need to do anything on. Boot options, we do, because right now we're booting to the desktop. We don't want that to happen. It's heavy. You want this machine to be running as light as possible. So you don't need a desktop running anyway. So let's go. So here you click on that and you say desktop and CLI. Choose whether to boot into a desktop or not. So here we're going to choose this. And you see that you have a text console requiring a user login. That's what you want. So I'm going to click on that. And another option you may want, and I strongly suggest, is to turn on SSH, which is allows you to log into this machine using something like Putty or an SSH client. And I'll show you that also on Windows, so that you can reboot it or do an update on the command line from a remote machine. So I'm going to do that as well. Again, that's optional, as most of these things can be done from the RasAp configuration webpage, so including console. So I'm just turning it on for the sake of doing so. Would you like SSH server to be enabled? Yes. So just choose yes. There we go, it's enabled. And now we're just done, and we just click on finish here. You can use the tab key to get to the finish, and then hit enter on finish. Would you like to reboot now? Yes, let's do that. And it's going to reboot, come back to the command line, which will be asking for a username and password. But that's totally normal, and that's the way you want it. So here it is rebooting. And by default, the access point software is running. At this point, I'm going to show you, I'm going to go to a Windows machine. We're going to log into this thing. We're going to configure it correctly, getting rid of the defaults and making it more secure for everybody, and showing you how it works. So here we are on the desktop. This is Windows, and first thing we need to do is see if our RasPi or RasAp is actually up and running. It should be pretty easy to tell. Here's how you tell. You come over here to your network icon. If you're connected to anything like a LAN cable or something, disconnect from whatever network you're on, and we're going to connect through Wi-Fi to the actual access point. So in this, you should see raspi-webgui, and that's what the default SSID is. I have it listed there as well. But just click on that, and then you can choose to connect automatically if you wish. You don't need to, but I'm going to. I'm going to hit, actually, let's see. Yeah, I've already connected to it, so I'm going to forget it. So, okay, back. So you can choose to connect automatically. I'm going to do that. Click on connect, and then it's going to ask you for the network key, and the security key is ChangeMe, just like you see here. So it's case sensitive, capital C, lowercase h-a-n-g-e, all lowercase, capital M, and lowercase e. So just put that in there. and that's what I'm going to do. Or, you know, again, I'm going to put all this stuff in the video description below, in the video description, so you can just, you know, copy and paste out of there if you wish. So yeah, back to our, okay, so there it is. I'm just going to paste it in there, and then I'm going to hit next. And it should connect, and it does. Perfect. So we know that the access point is now connected us. Well, we're now connected to the access point. Next thing we do is open up a browser window. We're going to see what it looks like. Now, the IP address where your access point is by default is this one right here, 10.3.141.1. So just hit copy on that. Again, in the video description. And paste that into your address bar, or just type it in. It's up to you. And then just hit enter. Again, going to ask me for a username and password. Check the video description again, and you can see here that the default is admin, and username and the password is just secret. So let's just put that in there. So admin and secret, and then just hit OK. And ta-da! There's our RasAp web page, so our configuration portal for the RasAp. So it's successful at this point. Now we've got it up and running, we're successful, but it's on all the defaults. We need to change these defaults so that this thing's secure. Anybody can Google this thing and get all the information off of it, okay? So, and log into it and do whatever they want with it, okay? So here we've got the dashboard, nothing to see here other than, you know, hey, I'm connected to it here with the desktop, and you know, the rest is just data collection. That's it. So we'll go to, now this next tab, I'm going to warn you ahead of time. It's to configure the access point to connect to another access point, and I don't recommend you doing this, because if you do, you'll break the app. You'll have to go into the desktop on the Raspberry Pi and, you know, reconfigure this. Just don't, this part of the app, don't play with, okay? I mean, you can, but you're going to have an issue with it. So I'm just warning you not to configure the Wi-Fi client. If you hit rescan here, I'll show you what happens. And it'll look for all the access points in your area and then give you the option to actually connect to it. And you don't want to do that, because once you connect to it, it no longer acts as an app, it acts as a client. So then you lose it. It's just, there's no point. So don't do it. I'm just showing it to you, but don't use this. Let's go to Hotspot. And here, this is important. Don't change the interface. You can change the SSID to wherever you want. You can change it to coffee shop or bake shop or office or whatever you want to actually give it a name that makes sense to you. The mode here, this is the various Wi-Fi modes the Raspberry can support. G is pretty safe by default. N is a little less compatible because not all devices have N capability. So, you know, but if yours all do, then just go to N. That's faster. So you can choose N if you wish. I'm going to. And then the channel, choose whatever channel you wish to choose. Hopefully one that doesn't, conflict with your current Wi-Fi channel. So check the Wi-Fi channel you're currently using on your other Wi-Fi devices, and, you know, like your router, and make sure that you don't conflict with that one. So I'm just going to hit save the settings here. And then we're going to go to security. You can use the defaults like on this, no problem. But I choose to use WPA and WPA2 because that gives me a little more compatibility with everything. So it doesn't hurt. You can use that. I would choose it anyways. I don't think there's any issue with it. Leave this on TKIP. There's really nothing else there that you need to play with. And then the PSK, which is the private security key, or the password to get into your router, into your RASP Wi-Fi connection. Definitely change this. Don't leave this like this, okay? So I'm going to change it to something random here. There we go. And once you do this, once you've changed the PSK or the password, what will happen, as well as with the SSID, is you'll get knocked off your wireless connection. So I'm going to hit save here. And we'll go to the advanced tab. I think you may have to reboot for it to take place, but I'll show you how to do that as well too. Let's go to the advanced tab. I've already enabled logging here just to show you what that means. But here, change your country code to whatever country you're in. In my case, I'm going to hit the United States because that's where I'm at. Choose your own country. It's I don't know how important it is, but it doesn't hurt to do it. So save the settings. And okay, it goes back to the beginning. But again, it took the setting here. So here, one thing I wanted to show you is when you enable logging, it creates a log file output. And it shows you what's going on in the router, which is cool, right? I certainly think it's neat. I'm not going to hit stop the hotspot because if you stop it, there's no way to start it again because you're not on it. You're connected through Wi-Fi, right? So don't hit the stop the hotspot. Just hit save settings, all right? And let's go to system here, and you have the option to reboot. So if you want to, you can hit the reboot. You can see that the uptime on it right now is 56 minutes. That means it's been on for 56 minutes. That the CPU load is 8% and that the memory use is 3%. Now, the reason for that is I took the Raspberry Pi down to the what they call init mode 3, which is the text line configuration. Now, you could have left yours up on the desktop. I don't recommend that because it slows it down. So take it and bring it down to the desktop, and I'll show you how to do that once we get onto SSH, okay? But right now, we'll just stay with this. The SSH part of this will be the last part that we configure. So I'm not going to hit reboot because that takes time and I got to wait and come back. So let's go back to where we were and configure hotspot. You've hopefully changed this to whatever you wanted, and definitely change the security. If you want to log, enable logging here, save the setting, and then the log file output will be here. Okay, so kind of neat. It tells you what's going on with it, and obviously it's going to change when we reboot because all these settings have been changed. So it'll log that too. So here, let's go to configure networking. This is an important screen. Number one reason is it tells you where the access point is. Okay. And if you see here, you'll see that it's on 192.168.30, right? That's the IP address that the actual router is on your network. So why is that important? Well, because though you can just leave it alone and the way it is right now, and it'll work just fine. The problem is that, when you reboot it, it may not have the same IP address every time, right? So it'll change places. It'll go from 192.168.0.30 to .0.45 or whatever. That means that you won't be able to automatically go to the same IP address to get to it every time. Whether that's an issue or not, it's really not that big a deal because you can always come in here and check the IP address and then go to it from there, right? So let's go to ETH here. Ethernet 0 is your internet connection. So it's the LAN cable you plugged into your Raspberry Pi, and you can set it right now. It's set to DHCP, right? And you can set it to static. It's up to you. Okay. I will probably set it to static and use use the IP addresses. You want to know what IP addresses to use on the static IP address? Well, for ETH0, you could just copy what you got here, 192.168.0.30, and put that in here, right? And then the default gateway would be 192.168.0.1. And DNS servers, you choose what you want. If you want to know what the IP addresses are for your router, you can check that on the router, or you can check it when you're connected to the router, and that'll give you that stuff. But again, safe just to leave it on DHCP. If you know anything about networking, you can change it here. Okay, so let's go here to WLAN. Now what WLAN is your wireless LAN. And again, it's set to DHCP again. And again, just leave it alone. It'll be just fine, I'm sure. You can set it to static, but what's the point? So let's go over here to configure DHCP server. If you don't know anything about DHCP servers, just leave it alone. It'll be fine. It's set right, and in this configuration, it will allow 205 clients to connect to your network. That's a lot, right? If you want more, you can increase this number by taking this down to say 0, and that'll give you 255 clients, or 54 anyway. So yeah, it's up to you. So actually, I wouldn't take this down to 0. I would never take it below 2 because then you're going to be conflicting with this router. So again, for most people, leave it alone. It's fine. And again, save the settings if you've changed them. Okay, so this is fine. Let's look at the client list. This is my my laptop that I'm currently on. So that's my IP address here. It shows you this, shows you my MAC address, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, I changed that anyway. So if you think that's going to help you somehow, it's not. So here, let's go to, so yeah, again, DHCP, if you don't know anything about it, skip it. Now, this is important, okay? This is important. The username to log in is admin. Now, you can change this to whatever you want. I'm going to change it to root, let's say. And the old password is secret, so put that in here. Need to change this. I can't stress it enough, okay? And you can change it to whatever you want, but just remember what you put in here. I'm going to put my new password in here, and I'll do it again. There we go. And then I'm going to save the settings. Okay? So it's now taken that new password. I'm sure it's going to ask me for a new one here when I go to the themes here. Yeah, here we go. See? So I've changed it to root. You can change it to whatever you wish. And there we go. And hit OK. There we go. So now I'm in themes, and I'm on the default themes. You can change this to different ones. There are different ones. I'm not sure if you can download new ones or update it or anything like that, but here we are. This is this theme. You can see how it's changing. And there's a third theme called terminal, which looks like a Linux terminal. So yeah, you can see that it works. Let's go back to the default. I like the default. I think it's nice. Next, we got data usage. And you can see that I've had it on, that it's logging that I'm moving data through it. It's pretty cool. This probably the neatest screen on the whole access point, and it shows you what's going on in real time. So that's neat. And that's the hourly count. I'm going to put this over here. Daily is here. Monthly is here, of course. And of course, I've only had this running for a day or two, so there's not a lot of data here. It will collect as you go on. So system, again, this is nice. It shows you how much memory is used, how much CPU load there is. Right now there's 20. You can change the language, and you can go into console. Console I found kind of limited. It doesn't do all that much. Let's try something here, like sudo. That's it. Okay, so this should bring up the configuration screen, and it's not. So let's see if I can change into the Pi user. That's probably my problem. So su Pi will switch me to the Pi user. That's the default user. We put the password in on the Raspberry Pi when we first started. So let's try that. See, it just doesn't want to let us do anything. So it's limited, Let's see what's going on. Yeah, it does not show much. It's sort of locks you in, cages you into a certain area. So yeah, if you want to do console stuff, then SSHing into the Raspberry Pi is the best way to go. Now we'll show you that at the end of this here in a minute. So we're back to system. Everything's cool. You've got reboot and you've got shutdown. If you hit shutdown, you're going to have to go to the Raspberry Pi eventually and power it off and power it back on again, because it'll just sit there and be shut down until you turn it on again. So reboot is probably the best way to go. If you want to refresh this, just hit refresh and you can see that it's changing. And about RasPap, it just tells you the version number and so on. So, but one more thing I wanted to point out to you guys is that if you want to reinstall this, anytime you want to reinstall this, this access point to its default settings and all the default stuff, all you need to do is run this again at your command line inside your Raspberry and hit yes to all the questions, and it will reinstall it back to default. It's really cool. So if it ever gets broken on you in some way, just reinstall it right over top, hit all the same yeses on the questions, and you're done. It will be right back to the way it was before. So, all right, so I'm going to hit a reboot here, and while that's happening, we're going to go get the SSH software that I was talking about. It's called Putty, so that you can remote into this router. So I'm going to hit the reboot here just to let it do it. And so that should kick me off the web interface here in a second. So I'm just not even going to wait. There, see? Boom. It's rebooting and kicked me off Wi-Fi. So I'm going to connect to my router here. And back to the browser. Obviously, now the page is gone. We're going to go and get something called Putty. P-U-T-T-Y. Now, Putty is an SSH client, as you can see. It's free. You can get it here. All right. And the reason I'm showing you this is because part of the beauty of Linux machines is that you can remote into them using SSH in the command line, and you have just as much power there as you do. In fact, you got more power there than you do on the desktop. And that gives you the ability to get into this thing without having to attach a screen, a keyboard, and all that stuff. It can run without all of that. As long as the USB thumb drive is in there or your memory is in there and the thing's booted up, you can remote into it. So you download Putty here. So click on that. And 64-bit version MSI is the one you want. I've, of course, already done this. So I'm just going to pretend here. I'm going to save the file. Probably put it in my downloads directory under Putty. There it is. So you can see that I've already installed it. So I download it. So I'm not going to do that, but you just hit save wherever you wish. After you're done, of course, you're going to have to double click that file. And it's not a very large file. Let's see how long it goes here. There it goes. And yeah, it's nothing. So there, it's already downloaded. It's 3 megabytes. Open it up, and it's it'll go through an installation process. Okay, in my case, I've already installed it, but just go with the defaults. I guess I could go with repair. Let's go with repair. You wouldn't get the repair option, but I'm just showing you how quick it is to install. And hit finish. Okay, so there, it's installed. Now you've got an SSH client. What does that mean? Well, it means that you can connect to your RasAp through SSH, and I'll show you what that means here in a second. Okay, so first of all, let's see if the Raspberry app is back up, and there it is. See, it's waiting for us to connect to it. So let's connect to it. And once we're connected, we're going to use Putty, so I'll just let that go. We're going to go here to your menu and just scroll down, and you'll see it under the P's. Putty 64-bit. That's what I downloaded and installed. Click on Putty. There we are. And it's still connecting, probably still booting. We'll wait. And once I need that to finish booting, but basically at this point, we know where the RasAp is, but we need to connect to a network in order to get to it. So, okay. Let's give it another shot. Probably went too early after the reboot. Neat stuff. I like teaching people a little bit about Linux and what it can do. Once it's connected, where we're going to go is we're going to go into Putty, but we're going to go here. That's where the RasAp is. So you take that IP address, drop it in here, and then here you can save it if you wish, so you don't have to keep doing this every time you go. So I just hit save, and it'll save that IP address, and then you just hit open, and off you go. Don't give me a hard time now. Come on, let's go. Oh, that's right. We changed the password, right? Ah, gee, Rich. Okay, here, hold on. I changed the password, and you probably did too. So if you're trying to follow along here, you would have run into the same thing. So here, just you can either hit forget or properties. I'm just going to hit forget and reconnect to it. I know what the new password I put in here is. So connect. It's going to ask me for the password, and there we go. That's what I typed in. Next. Yeah, sure. Boom, connected, right? So now if we go to SSH, we'll go here. I'll show you why this is cool. Okay. Say yes to this. And there's the Raspberry Pi responding to your remote login. So Pi is the user. Hopefully you changed this password when you first went in. I'm going to put my password in here when you first configured the Raspberry Pi. And here we are. We're on the Raspberry Pi. It logged into it. Now, if you want to know what IP address it's on, you can always just type in ifconfig, and that is if-config, interface configuration. It does a lot more than show you the IP address, but there's where it's at. Really, actually, it's on 192.168.0.30 still, and the WLAN, that's the Ethernet address, and the WLAN is on 10.3.1.4.1.1. So if you were not logged into it through here, through the raspi-webgui, then you would probably be on your home network on something other than that IP address, and that would more than likely be this IP address where you could connect to it anyway, okay? So that's the Ethernet address is the inside your network IP address. The WAN or WLAN address is the outside your network IP address to connect to it. So you choose which one you can get to. But if you're not, like I said, you need to be in the right place to get to it. So since we're connected to raspi-webgui here, we're connected to the WLAN, which is the wireless interface. Then we SSH into that. Okay. So I know you really don't need to know any of this stuff. I'm just showing you this so you know. Nice thing here is that you can type in sudo reboot if you wish, and that'll reboot the Raspberry Pi, or you can go through all the previous commands you put in here, like update, upgrade. You can do that from remotely, which is nice. And the other thing too you can get to is the sudo, and this is what I really wanted to show you, and that is raspi-config. Now, raspi-config, when you enter it, is the configuration program for your Raspberry Pi. I mean, it's perfect, right? So here is where you would change your boot options. And again, you can choose whether it boots to the desktop or the command line. Mine is currently set to go to the text console requiring a user login. But you can, by default, the way we set it up when we first set it up was this one, desktop, auto login, desktop GUI, automatically logged in as Pi user. Now, that's fine, but it uses up a lot of resources that you don't really need to. Okay, so mine is set to the console, text console, requiring a user to log in. Right, that's step one there. The other thing that you need before SSH will work, and that is the interfacing options. You need to have SSH to be enabled. Now, of course, you can't remotely turn on SSH because you can't get to it without doing this, right? So best idea on turning on SSH is when you're on the desktop on the Raspberry Pi is to turn SSH on. So here we're going to hit enter. Would you like the SSH server to be enabled? Yes. Well, it already is, so it's okay anyway. So here, hit your tab keys, go down to finish, and you're done. And I don't need to reboot, so I'm going to say no to that. If you've changed stuff, reboot it, and it will come back with the changes. So again, a little bit of a Linux tutorial there. Again, that's optional. You don't need to do this stuff. I just wanted to show you what's available to you. And if you're using a Raspberry Pi, you should learn how to use console commands to get into it and how to use it. It's an intermediate level, but this is an intermediate computer level computer. And if you're learning Linux learn command line. It's very powerful, and it's certainly helpful, and it actually, I believe, works better than the GUI most of the time. So I'll just close this off. We're done with SSH. We should be back on the router at this point, or at the access point. So I'm going to hit cancel on that. Let's just put the IP address in here. Bang, we're in. And it's coming back up fast, as you can see. And under system, yeah, 7% CPU load, 3% of the memory is used. So, that's the thing about using the 32 gig USB memory stick. You got a lot of space left over. Even if you use the full Raspbian image with all the recommended software, you'd still have 26 gigs of empty space. So yeah, works well. Everything's currently working beautifully on this thing. Let's just go to data usage, and you can see that it's still logging data usage there, as well as if you go to configure hotspot under log file output, you can see all the new entries from rebooting and coming back up. Let's look at advanced settings. Still, enable logging still on there. It did change and keep my configuration settings for WPA, WPA2, and my obviously not going to remain password for logging in is there. And guys, you can fool with these things, see if you can get better performance out of it. I've had it up for 2 days already in testing this, and it was rock solid. It was very fast, and I didn't have any problem connecting to it. So I'm very happy with this project, and I think if you have a Raspberry Pi 3 Model B Plus, this is a great application for it. Now, again, I use the USB thumb drive as more or less for fun, and because they're cheap, I got that one for $8. Again, links in the video description below. But you can use micro SD just as well, or even a hard drive if you wish to, but I think that'd just be total overkill. Even 32 gigs of space on that USB 3 thumb drive, I do not recommend using a USB 2 thumb drive. You'll pull your hairs out because they're just so slow. USB 3, I would say, is the minimum you should use. And I don't think you can get any smaller than 16 gigs on a USB 3 thumb drive. And my 32 gig PNY was, I believe, about $8. So again, I'll put links for that in the video description. And all the commands and everything, again, in the video description. That's where they're going to be. That's it for my video on turning a Raspberry Pi 3 Model B Plus into a wireless access point. If you like this video and it helped you out in some way, do me a huge favor. Click on the like button in the bottom corner over here and give me a big thumbs up. That helps my channel, it helps my video, and I greatly appreciate it. Also, up here you'll see a picture of me. That is a subscription link. If you click on that subscription link, you'll be subscribed to my channel. As part of the process of subscribing to my channel, you'll see a bell icon. The bell icon is the notification bell. When you click on that as part of that process, you'll be notified every time I put up a new video, and then you can watch it at your own leisure. Once again, and like always, I want to thank you for watching and for your time.